Hey friend, welcome to the Halfway to Dead podcast. I'm your host, Jen Lovell. Listen, you and I have reached that age where we are done with the bullshit. We know that midlife is our chance to flip the script and experience life on our own terms. It's time to reconnect with our higher selves and reclaim our inner peace. Are you ready with an open heart and an open mind? Awesome, you're in the right place. Hop in and ride shotgun with me on this midlife spiritual journey. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're talking all things ADHD with Theresa Lear Levine. Theresa is the founder of Becoming More Me, an international best-selling author, a keynote speaker, a EFT master practitioner, hypnotherapist, and a happily married mom of 4 boys who helps ADHD entrepreneurs and high achievers create lasting calm, clarity, and confidence through nervous system and subconscious rewiring. Doesn't that sound lovely? I've shared a little bit on the socials about the fact that I have been recently diagnosed with ADHD. Yeah, of course I kind of knew, but I got the official, label put on me. So I've been sitting in this for a little bit, feeling the feelings, figuring things out, going down the rabbit hole. And lo and behold, synchronicities, I already had Theresa on the books for this interview. So this feels like divine timing for all of us to hear about this. Theresa shares a little bit of her story of being diagnosed with ADHD in midlife. We talk about why so many women are discovering that they have ADHD for the first time during perimenopause. There is a reason for this. She talks about the 3 emotional states that most high achievers have never been taught to access. We also dive into her 7 minutes to finish what you started method. And we go into a couple of things she's found very helpful: EFT, or tapping, and hypnotherapy. As usual, everything's in the show notes, but there's also a special link to an EFT tapping session that Theresa did with me. She asked me what I was sitting in right now, and she just custom built a whole EFT tapping session just for me. We do it together. And if you click the link, it'll take you to that session. If you have ADHD, when you're like, ooh, I want to do some of this EFT tapping, listen, we got a custom one that she made for us. Let's start diving into this ADHD thing in midlife. Hey, Theresa, thanks for being here today.
I'm so excited to be here, Jen. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Guys, this is perfect timing because I've been letting my listeners know I'm a newly diagnosed ADHDer.
Really?
Yeah, adulthood. I have questions. Of course, we all do. So I'm excited. I've told everyone already about all the things you do. So let's jump in. I want to hear more about your personal story first.
Okay.
Like, when did you have this awakening to all the things?
Yeah. Multiple times. I don't feel like it was definitely like one time, but yeah. So there's a lot to unpack there, right? I would say as far as like with the work that I do nowadays, it was about, what are we, 2026 right now? Like 2019, 2020. So going back not too far, that's when I started learning about a lot more about like energy medicine and the nervous system and the subconscious mind and how I could work with those things to make breakthroughs that I was having trouble with before. ADHD or where I find the pattern I see the most among people that I interact with every day is we're super smart. We have a lot of knowledge. We have a lot of resources, and we also have a hard time just like doing the thing. There's like kind of this like invisible wall that prevents the initiation of doing what we already know how to do and following through on it. And I was having that problem, in spades. And it was so frustrating because then of course, like the smarter you get and the more educated you get about the things, that you want to do or make happen in your life, your business, your relationships, your health, and then you're not doing them. It just puts this spotlight on the lack. It puts a spotlight on things you don't really want it on. And it can really kind of send you into a little bit of a tailspin. So that's kind of where I was at that time. And, at that point I have, 4 kids. One was very young at the time, just a couple of years old. Now in 2026, my youngest is 9 and my oldest is 21. So 4 boys and trying to run like 2 businesses from home. And just, it was nuts. And then I seemingly magically came across EFT tapping while I was away at a retreat, which was a pretty rare thing. I'm a mom of 4 young children, but got away and am being introduced to this modality that I had heard about plenty of times before. Like EFT tapping's been around since the 90s and the way that we know it now. It's not new and it's not based on anything new either. But I had only seen it used by like professional athletes or like people that were not like sitting on a couch trying to nurse a newborn and sleep through the night and deal with hormonal fluctuations and all the things that I was dealing with in my life. So in this new context, it made perfect sense. And I was like, holy cow, this is something that I can apply to anything I feel, emotional, physical, spiritual, mental, and create a change. I was like, this is what I've been missing. And that's essentially how I started to kind of break through that invisible wall and be able to take action on the things that meant something to me. And not just talk about them, but do them. And then I added in, hypnotherapy and a bunch of other modalities.
So you've got these kids, you're stressed out, you're running business, you're all these things. At that point, are you fully diagnosed with ADHD and you're trying to manage it other ways? Or no, you don't, that's not on your radar?
Nope. I mean, well, on my radar, I don't know that I've ever really had a doubt that I had ADHD, but the diagnosis didn't come until I was 43 and I'm 48 now. So I've had it for 5 years of the diagnosis, but a whole lifetime of ADHD.
Yes. And as far as spiritual, you were just getting into energy, EFT type, hypnotherapist. Were you kind of a little bit woo-woo at all or no?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I really got into a lot of spiritual things. I mean, gosh, I was raised, my mom was always watching the PBS specials and Wayne Dyer and all this kind of stuff. Not cool when you're the, 10 or 12-year-old that's mom's watching PBS again. But it was always around. My mom was very much in tune with that kind of stuff. So it was always in my realm of awareness. And then my first marriage ended in divorce when I was in my early 20s. And at that time I turned to Buddhism and other things and studied those and leaned into that kind of spiritual stuff.
Okay. So you've always been a seeker and probably with the busy, creative, smart ADHD mind, you were open to explore all the things.
Of course. Yes.
Trying to figure it all out. Yeah, I get that. We're going to get into how we manage it and all this stuff. But tell me a little bit about your diagnosis process for people listening. If you're out there thinking right now, this feels like me as she's talking. What was that process like for you?
It's a hard one to explain. I don't diagnose people, but going through the diagnosis myself, it felt like it would be a big nothing. And it didn't necessarily feel like a big nothing once I got the diagnosis. So I will say that because even though it wasn't a surprise, there was nothing that came through in any of the paperwork from, the psychiatrist that I worked with to get my diagnosis or anything else that was oh, this is really shedding light on something I didn't know. It was just kind of having that label be official definitely was something where I wanted to use my own tools to release those different energetic blockages, the self-judgment.
It's something about the outside world putting the label on us. We already know the things. They're not telling us anything new, right? Yeah, there's no shocking information, but all of a sudden when you feel like you fully have that label put on you, you got to kind of sit in that for a minute, right? I'm okay, what does this mean? How do I move forward with this now that the world sees what I've been feeling already?
Exactly. And it can feel a little bit limiting, I guess, in a way.
You got diagnosed and were you starting to weigh all your options? Do I want medication? Do I not want medication? And obviously you started moving to these other modalities that have really helped you, which we're going to talk about. But initially, was there pressure from the medical community to go straight to medication? Did you take medication and felt the benefits? What was your theory on all that?
One of the main reasons that I wanted to be diagnosed was so that I could kind of play around with options and just see. I mean, I was already coaching other people and working with them and seeing how much I was aligning with people that had ADHD. It wasn't necessarily my target market at that point, but I was okay. And also I have my 4 sons, all of them have ADHD. So they weren't all diagnosed at the point when I got diagnosed, but I'd already been through a couple of diagnoses with some of the older ones and also different choices that were made depending on what worked for them, depending on medication or no medication or whatever. So I'd seen a lot of the options and I was kind of I would like to see, what happens. So I have been on and off of medications for ADHD, and I have found them both helpful and unhelpful at different times. But I think having those options is helpful. I know right now when I need a little bit of medication, when I don't. And I also know when medication feels dysregulating to my nervous system and I need a break.
This is pretty common to get a late diagnosis of ADHD. Are you seeing that there's a lot of perimenopausal, menopausal women figuring this out at that point? And why do you think that is?
Yeah, it happens a lot. And it was no different for me, right? 43. And I hadn't even quite figured out that I was already in perimenopause at that point either. You can really put the pieces together pretty well in hindsight's 2020, right? But it was not as easy to see then. And it's frustrating to me that like, as far as like the medical system is set up, the people that diagnose and treat and help you with perimenopause are not the same people that diagnose, treat and help you with ADHD. And they're also not sharing notes or conveying information that's helpful to make any of it easier for us. So again, really grateful for my own like heightened awareness and things that I'd been working on at that time so that I was able to start putting those pieces together quicker than I know a lot of other women have been. And it's been a big part of what I talk about in my work, putting that together, because I think that a lot of women wonder when they get to this age, like, is it ADHD or is it perimenopause? Or like, if I didn't have ADHD before, do I have it now? And I don't necessarily have the answers to all of those questions, but I do know that a lot of the things that happen during perimenopause can definitely exacerbate ADHD-like symptoms and make it, I mean, because, brain fog and things like that, if you're already kind of distracted or whatever else, can
Yeah,
definitely.
then when your hormones get all out of whack, you're in trouble. Like it probably does become more obvious. And I also think that we get to this age, because I'm sitting here at 53. I found out 10 years later than you did. I mean, officially. But I think also we get to this midlife point where we have a little more time to focus on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We're all busy taking care of everyone else. Like you said, you were already taking care of like your kids that had ADHD, everything else going on. So I think sometimes we get to this point in life and we go, ooh, I should look in the mirror now. I got to figure my own shit out. We actually start focusing on self-care a little bit more. And so this is a part of it. Are you seeing that with a lot of your clients?
Yes, I've definitely seen that. And I've also seen, and this is kind of where I started to notice it more like compounding, was that as I had more kids, things that had been easier for me to like keep under control, different ADHD tendencies, it got harder to manage that because, the 2 kids to 3 kids shift was definitely like the biggest one. Like when you don't have enough hands to hold all their hands and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I have 3. They're speaking my language. It's a lot.
That's like when I stopped actually like labeling all of my pictures that I had like saved and stuff with like who's in them and what was happening at the time the picture was taken because I didn't have the time or the capacity or whatever else. Like everything just has like a digital.
The first kid gets all the pictures, the albums, the fun little 1 month, 2 month, 3 month pictures. And by the time you're on 3rd or 4th, you're like, I don't know how old they are. Like, let's just get some pictures. We'll sort this out later. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that it can come around. But, estrogen also like helps the ADHD brain. It interacts with the brain systems involving dopamine and serotonin and epinephrine and like the stuff that helps support our attention and our motivation and our working memory and so much else. So in perimenopause, estrogen doesn't decline smoothly. Like if we much, like from one day to another, like it's a roller coaster.
It is. You're riding the waves. You're falling off the cliffs. Yep.
Yeah, it can be very erratic. So for women that are already like vulnerable to ADHD type symptoms, that shift can definitely make, focus and emotional regulation and task initiation and memory noticeably worse while you're going through all of that too. So I think that's a reason why so many people end up getting diagnosed during that time, or maybe not noticing or being able to manage things up until that point.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you just talked about some of the signs, but it's the brain fog. It's the emotional regulation. I'm forgetting things. I can't organize things the way I used to be able to, right? Yeah. Even just your emotional control. Like, why am I getting pissed so fast? And that has all to do with hormones. And you're right, triggers then ADHD symptoms too.
And then the coping strategies don't work anymore. Right. So a lot of undiagnosed women have spent like their entire lives compensating through perfectionism or anxiety or a sense of urgency about things, over preparation and people pleasing and good girl behavior, blah, 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 blah. And so like we're already kind of like working twice as hard as everybody else to like,
Absolutely.
It can make us look like we're like super competent, but it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. And then bring in perimenopause, right? Sleep disruption, brain fog, like all that stuff. I don't know if I've ever been as tired in my life other than having like a newborn during those first few weeks is when I was trying to like navigate all of that.
Yeah, because it gets buried in our body and we start getting other illnesses, right? Now we're getting physically sick with other things because we've been burying all this for so many years. Now we got to feel the feelings. Now we got to get the diagnoses. Now we get everything under control. Yeah, it's a little whirlwind we're all stuck in. But you know what? I feel like we're set up for this. We've been through some stuff. We're set up to handle this, you guys. No worries.
Women, obviously, like there's also the idea that, ADHD is really easy to miss in girls because so many people are focused on the hyperactivity and things like that.
Sure. It's the 10-year-old boy bouncing off the walls. That's what we think about. And we forget about all the girls out there, even young girls right now that are, hey, they're getting good grades. We're not worried about her. Hey, you know what I mean? Forgetting all of those internal symptoms that are being missed.
Where it hides for a lot of people is that like the condition might have been present, but the recognition and the treatment have been historically inadequate for women, including insufficient attention to symptom changes during these types of reproductive transitions. So yeah, it's a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, we gotta us older girls gotta start supporting the younger ones doing this. So you talk about how smart, ambitious ADHD entrepreneurs, what they do differently that will make them the sharpest person in the room, but also the last one to finish to the finish line, the last one to get the job done. Why is that? Because procrastination is a big ADHD thing.
Yes, it definitely is. And sometimes we move the finish lines too, which doesn't make it any easier to cross them. So yeah, we can know all of those things that we need to know in order to do things. And then, it's not always even just ADHD. A lot of times it's our nervous system dysregulation that makes it really difficult to move out of fight, flight, freeze, flee, flop, and to actually do those things. And nervous system dysregulation is often present with ADHD. So that can make it really difficult too.
You also talk about these 3 emotional states that most high achievers have never been taught to access. So what are these? Tell us about them.
Yeah. So with ADHD, entrepreneurs especially are often taught to access like productivity through pressure and urgency and fear and adrenaline and things like that. And the things that we're not taught to access are the calm and the clarity and the confidence. So with calm being the idea that, you're not shutting down or becoming passive, but you have enough regulation to think and prioritize and act without manufacturing a crisis, right? And the clarity is another one that's usually pretty difficult to access too for a lot of people. I know that's one of the main things that people say they want to work on when they come to work with me is they just feel unclear about things and they have confusion around like what actually matters, what the next step is to take, or what can be ignored instead of treating everything as equally important because we have a lot of trouble with prioritization, right? And then with confidence, that's the idea of being able to really trust yourself to make decisions, to take imperfect action, right? And to be able to handle whatever comes next and return to yourself after getting distracted without the shame or the collapse or the things that happen for so many of us when we get a little bit off of the beaten path. So those are the things that, instead we were taught to, use anxiety or urgency or pressure. And because of that, the peace, the calm, the clarity, and the confidence often feel really unproductive. And that's part of what makes them so uncomfortable.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing is it's going to be really, really important to get our nervous systems regulated because I don't think we can get to the calm, the clarity, and the confidence when our system's just a mess, right? I don't know. I feel like that's a priority. And not just if you're listening, if you have ADHD, just in general. Right? I think all of our nervous systems need some serious regulation. So is that where some of these techniques that you started doing, that you found help with, you were practicing them personally, and then you got certified to help others through your coaching and different things? So what would be the number one thing you would recommend to start getting your nervous system regulated?
I love EFT tapping as a starting point because it's so simple, it's so accessible, and anybody can do it.
Tell us about it. So if you're listening and you're just like, I have never even heard of EFT tapping, what are we talking about?
So we're talking about emotional freedom techniques. That's what it stands for. Like I mentioned before, it's been around for a while, since the 90s, and it's based in ancient Chinese medicine as well as modern psychology. And it involves speaking to the issue, whatever the issue would be. Like I said earlier, you can use EFT for emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical pains and diseases. So basically anything that you can feel, you can make progress with using EFT, scientifically proven. And you're speaking to the issue, which is the modern psychology part of it, while you're tapping on these meridian endpoints. So, imagine kind of like the side of your hand, top of your head, there's points around your eyes, there's points under your nose and under your mouth, your collarbone, under your arm. And as you're tapping those are kind of stimulating areas where a lot of times energy gets blocked. And when your energy is flowing freely, there is no dis-ease. It's when our energy gets blocked that we have a dis-ease.
Okay. And this is where it crosses paths with Chinese medicine and the meridians.
Exactly.
Where you're not just randomly tapping your body. There are specific points, right?
Yeah.
That we need to do this. And are you saying that as we're doing the tapping technique, we are speaking aloud?
Yes.
Maybe you're going through a divorce and you feel pain, and I mean, emotional and physical pain from the toll it's taking on you. Okay,
Right.
what kind of stuff are we saying to ourselves?
And I've been through that. I can relate here. And, it could be the turmoil of something that just happened with your ex that is firing you up, or it could be just the overall like loss and grief and maybe even anger that's happening. You're going to focus it on whatever the thing is that's prominent for you. And then as you're tapping, you're addressing that. Like, even though I am so angry about, this part of the divorce that I'm going through, I want to love, accept, and forgive myself. Because with clear energy and with love, acceptance, and forgiveness, it's like there's nothing that can't change, right?
Right.
And you don't have to believe it right off the bat. And we're not trying to affirm things that are really outlandish and out there. We want to really speak to what the pain is and how we really feel. It doesn't matter if it's right or politically correct or anything else. We want to really feel what we're feeling and allow that to come through.
Okay, so
and
you're stating your real, honest emotional feelings.
Yes.
And also stating something in a positive way after. But is there
Even
like a
though
but?
I feel whatever, I love, accept, and forgive myself. Or I'm open to the idea that, and something a little bit more positive, something that can help you to break through some of those energetic blockages. And then you're going through the other points and you're just dishing out the issues, like, hey, he's such an asshole or whatever. I mean, whatever the thing is, like, be honest and just say the thing.
Yeah, like even though he cheated on me, I know I'm valuable. Just whatever. You're like,
and you can even talk about how worthless you feel or how unvaluable you feel, or, how dragged through the dirt and, you never know how you're going to get through this.
What the tapping is doing is explain to me, because your brain, you're hearing what you're saying. You're tapping on a meridian. Is that helping move the emotion you're feeling through? Is that what we're doing or no?
You're putting the focused attention on a distressing thought, emotion, memory, whatever the thing is, with verbal processing and with cognitive reframing while you're tapping on these specific points. So research shows the reductions in psychological distress, your stress hormones go down as you're doing this. It's actually super fascinating because, you think about how much stress like a divorce situation could bring into play. And in just 5 minutes of tapping, you can lower your cortisol up to 43%. And then you start to think about if you did not feel so stressed about the thing, how much clearer could you actually think about it? And how much different perspective might you be able to gain or accept or understand something differently? I've always kind of felt like if I'm tapping on something that's really bothering me in the moment, it's kind of like being at a concert and you're in the mosh pit and you're up by the stage, and it might be really great that you're at the concert and you have really close up seats, but you're also cramped and you kind of feel threatened and everything else. A round of EFT tapping to me is rising up into the penthouse box suite. And it's you can still hear it all super crystal clear. You can see everything. There's no feeling like anybody is threatening your space or anything else. And you just have a totally different perspective on something.
You just feel more separated from it.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel so real. And we have to say it out loud. If we're in a situation where we can't say it aloud, people are around, but we want to do a little tapping, can we say it in our brains, or does it really best out loud?
You can. I work with people all the time, and there's a lot of things that people like to work on, like fear of flying or stuff with public speaking when they're, and especially with divorce mediation. I've done a lot of stuff with divorce mediation groups where it's they know they're going to be either in a law office across from their ex or in court or something like that. And you can very easily think the things while using different meridian endpoints, like the ones we have meridian endpoints on the sides of each of our fingers, around our fingernails.
Oh, perfect.
You can tap, you could have if you have a pocket or a hoodie or under the table or whatever else. It's very easy to, be thinking through the tapping while you're tapping those endpoints and still making
and bring that cortisol down before, as it's about to rise. I like that a lot.
Or if you can yourself and go into a bathroom for 5 minutes or something, then you could do it and still be quiet, but you can use regular points without people wondering what you were doing. So,
okay. All right. So EFT tapping, that's going to be a big one to regulate. And then you also do hypnotherapy. Tell us more about hypnotherapy.
Yeah, hypnotherapy is amazing. I decided that I wanted to add that into my repertoire because I've had so much good experiences with it in my own therapy and in my own work that I've done with
Tell me about that. Give us one instance where it was very beneficial for you.
I can give you, this is perfect for today because we're on a podcast, right? When I was first doing podcast guesting, I was on a show where there were 2 hosts and we were doing some EFT tapping as a bonus add-on at the end for their listener. The show went great. The EFT tapping afterwards went great. And it's interesting. We're actually working through some divorce situations, kind of like we're talking about today. The next day, I got this email that basically like berated me for being unprofessional and, telling me not to release the EFT tapping that was going to be like my part of the thing to release. It was like, where did this come from? Like, but it really like in my ADHD brain, like I started kind of ruminating.
Oh, geez, you were spinning out. I can only imagine.
Feeling shame of like, what did I do wrong? Like, I mean, here I was having a casual conversation like we are with these two women that I had just met. And there's nothing that gave me any indication that there was an issue. In retrospect, I can see where I think there were some personal things that they may have talked about that they didn't want released. They kind of turned it on me, which was just weird. But anyway, I went to my hypnotherapist the next day and told her all about that. And we did a session. I just felt so much better. I was like up like all night playing this thing over in my head. Like, what did I do wrong? Where did I mess this up? Or why are they doing this? So yeah, hypnotherapy just like really reframed that for me without me really having to do much more than like share the context of the situation with my therapist, and then went into trance and she helped me work it all out.
Okay. So when you're saying hypnotherapy, because people, if you've not had hypnotherapy, people worry like, what? I'm not going to remember what happened. I'm getting hypnotized. But that's not exactly what we're talking about, right? Okay. Tell us more about the actual process so that people understand what you mean when you say hypnotherapy.
Sure. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about hypnosis because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. I can't make you do anything that is not in your best interest, that I can't hypnotize you to go rob a bank or do something that would not be in your best interest, nor would you share things with me that wouldn't be in your best interest. Hypnotherapy is also a heightened state of awareness. So a lot of people think like they're going to like go to sleep or whatever. It's a sleep of your nervous system, but it is a heightened awareness otherwise. The way that I do it, and everybody's experience doing it is different, but I love to do like regressive hypnotherapy and take people back to these moments where whatever the issue is actually began, which are often not when you think it began, but when you can actually get your nervous system to relax, then you can kind of get into what the subconscious mind has been guarding. And that's the real value with hypnotherapy, is being able to reframe and kind of rewrite those stories and create the transformation on a subconscious level, because the subconscious is really the gatekeeper that prevents a lot of change, because you've been wiring things into your subconscious brain since, before you were born. And then you pretty much soaked up everything around you like it was capital T truth until you were 9, 10, 12, like pretty young. And you didn't have the know-how to question it at that point. So like you never questioned all that stuff that was being just programmed in by caretakers and parents and, people that were part of your world and things that happened around you and so forth. So that all just becomes kind of the basis of your belief system and how you operate and everything else. So a lot of my work is about reforming and reframing beliefs, releasing the stuff that doesn't serve you, and building a new identity, because our identity is based on, what we feel and think and believe on a day-to-day basis. And those are also the things that feel the scariest to change.
We talk about this when we're doing the spiritual awakening work. You got to go back to childhood. You got to go back to limiting beliefs that started very young, right? And you have to start figuring out, why did I get that belief? When did I get that belief? And how can I reframe it now? Right? That doesn't feel valid for me anymore. So the whole time you're in hypnotherapy, so you're having a conversation during it.
Yeah, oftentimes. Sometimes I do it where they don't need to really participate at all, but I like the participation, because I feel like I was actually just doing a session with a client before we were on here, and she was talking about how much she values it because she feels like she gets so much farther, so much faster. This particular client's also a therapist. And she's like, this is so much faster than talk therapy. And even though the same things might have come to light over 4 to 6 sessions of talk therapy, we got to it in 10 minutes.
Right, because you're going into your subconscious. You're getting into what your body, your spirit, already knows. We actually know the things. It's accessing it. That's what we need help with. So that's what the hypnotherapy is doing. Okay, I like that. I haven't done hypnotherapy, but I have done like QHHT sessions where you drop into that hypno state and, go back in time and all the things. I've gone back to like a certain age, right? To see like, whoa, what was going on? Is that when it started, or do I need to go back further? You figure out when the trauma started. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I like that.
The subconscious has all of those answers. Even though so many people think like, oh, I don't know, I've forgotten all of that, or whatever else. It doesn't matter. It's all in there. It is all in there. And even if you can't access a specific memory in a vivid format or whatever, you can access a feeling, a knowing, intuition about things that can be very helpful in changing the future course of things.
Yes, we have all the answers. We actually don't need outside help.
No,
We have the answers, but sometimes we need a little help getting to them.
the necessity of the help is more like we're so in it with whatever like we're dealing with that it's so much easier and faster to allow somebody else to guide you to see it than it is to try to keep seeing it on your own when it's like it's all just like right here and you're like, what is that? It's too much. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we can figure out everything on our own. But also, most of the issues that we have started and happened in relationship with someone else in some other time. And the fastest path to healing is also in relationship, whether that's a relationship with your coach or your therapist, or in, a spousal relationship or a friendship or whatever the relationship is. Healing is just so much deeper and faster in relationship.
Yes, I agree. So the EFT, the hypnotherapy, are there other other techniques that you recommend that people start looking into to start regulating that nervous system better?
Probably my favorites. I weave in breath work and integrative eye movement and other things like that. But those are like my two favorites that a lot of other things are kind of based on anyway. I also love chakra work and stuff like that as far as figuring out where issues are and kind of what to focus on and when. But yeah, I think there's a lot of progress that people can make on their own also with things like EFT. I know a lot of times by the time that somebody's, getting on a call with me to talk about like one-on-one work, if they've already gone through like my EFT programs and things like that, they've already experienced tons of breakthroughs on their own and without that one-on-one guidance. So that was always my goal when I first, started helping people, was like, how can I make it more accessible, teach people so that they don't feel like they need a coach or a therapist all the time. And they know that they can have that self-trust and that self-awareness to be able to pinpoint what the issue is and work on it in a way that helps them feel better.
Yes, because the goal is independence, not dependence on someone else. We want to independently be able to regulate, right?
Yes.
So it's these learning opportunities that you offer. So for a lot of us, we get told you got to work harder, you got to try harder. And that doesn't work a lot of times, especially for ADHD entrepreneur type people, correct? And you have a whole program, 7 minutes to finish what you started method. How we can kind of nip this procrastination. We've got a project. We need to get it done. Like you said, we push back deadlines. We do all the things. Are there certain things we can start putting into play now that would be helpful?
As far as being able to follow through and finish things?
Yes. Finish what you started. Stop procrastinating. Where we don't have to feel like we have to work a lot harder. We just need to maybe work smarter, if that's the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we're missing a lot of the time is like the pleasure and ease that actually makes things enjoyable, because like we feel like everything has to be work, and letting something be easier and be more pleasurable doesn't mean that you're avoiding effort. But it does mean that you get to take away any kind of like unnecessary suffering or shame or internal resistance that's attached to the effort. And I think that is often what makes people shut down and not follow through. We're really good at moving the finish line or not celebrating the things that we do finish and just moving on to the next thing. And a lot of us have kind of like accidentally trained ourselves to believe that work only counts if it feels really hard or took a lot of effort. And that can be really difficult too. So with my Finish What You Start program, it teaches people to stop waiting for motivation and to stop relying on panic and pressure and deadlines and begin making completion feel safe. That's usually what's missing. It seems weird, but usually it doesn't feel either safe or emotionally meaningful or familiar to finish. So, because ADHDers, we don't lack ideas, right? We have plenty of ideas, plenty of things that we want to work on and accomplish. But the struggle is because every new idea competes with something that we're already doing. So this program really helps people to choose the meaningful goal instead of kind of spreading your energy across all sorts of different possibilities and multiple priorities. Like that is not a word that was plural 100 years ago. We had like a priority, and now we're trying to prioritize all sorts of things. And then if you add ADHD in there and just the understanding of prioritization is very difficult, it helps there too. Most productivity systems focus on what needs to be done. And I think that can be a problem too. My process like reconnects people to why it matters, what completion feels like, and then who they become through doing it. And that gives our brain such a more compelling reason to return to doing the thing instead of abandoning it or abandoning ourselves in the process. And it's a process that I've personally been using for about a decade now, and it has helped me complete so many things. I mean, the house that I'm sitting in here with my office, like I did that through this process, found the home, we're in it, figured out how to make it happen through that process. My business has evolved through that process. I even joke on some of my ads that people see online that like I created the ad by using the process that helped me create the program, that like it's all very meta.
It's very, because I would assume we do get trapped in patterns, right? Because I'll just speak for myself. If I'm used to meeting my deadline right before it happens, like if it's due Friday, I might be up a long time Thursday night to finish. So for me to finish on Tuesday or Wednesday is going to feel very uncomfortable. I'm going to assume I've done something wrong. I didn't do it well enough. I don't know. Like, why am I done 2 or 3 days early? Because it's a habit. Like you said, we've got to break the habit and the feeling that goes with that, right? Is that what you're saying? We've got to figure out a new pattern.
Yeah. Finishing early feels really unsafe too. A lot of ADHD. So, I mean, there's different ways that can be approached. And this 7-minute process can help you figure out like which way is going to be the best for you. I mean, I've worked with people where they realize that they're probably not going to change that. They're okay with that. But what would it take to release all that guilt and pressure and self-criticism that you put on yourself leading up to doing it at the last minute?
Yes.
Yeah, because if you already know that you're going to wait until right before the thing is due, then what does it take to release all of that so that you're not wasting life and time and good feelings leading up to it? Because you know you're going to get it done, and that's when you're going to get it done. And with other people, it's a matter of like, how do we like reconstruct the process of getting things done so that it feels safer to start it earlier, because they really do genuinely want to finish things in advance and have that breath of fresh air before something's due. And that matters to them. So everybody's different. And I think sometimes we judge ourselves for being really good at doing things with last minute urgency. And it's not always a problem, but a deadline isn't merely a date. It becomes the thing that like finally creates enough urgency for so many of us when we didn't have it before. So yeah, our ADHD brains can like start unconsciously treating panic as our signal to do something. And that's where we get into problems, is like, oh, that's when we start. We start when we like feel so uncomfortable or so worried about something. And then if we finish ahead of time, we're like, oh gosh, what do I do with this extra time? I'm not used to that. Or like, maybe I'm not actually done. Like maybe there's time to improve it, or I should tinker with it some more. And then we can actually waste more time than we need to do the thing. So yeah, or like what's going to actually happen after I finish this? Is somebody going to ask me to do something else? And then there's more pressure and there's more panic. So maybe I should just wait, because then it's not automatically something else that's going to be handed to me to be done. There's a lot of things that can weave in the fear and the unsafety around finishing for us. And a lot of times people have never thought of those things.
Yes. So when you're coaching, this is kind of what you're doing. You're helping people figure out what's going to work best for them, because it's not a cookie cutter thing. Right? What's going to work best for you in your life. And then you've got these modalities you can tap into to help that person with the coaching. All right. And you've also got your book, Becoming More Me. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So that was a labor of love for me. I've always wanted to be a published author. That was kind of like, since I was a little girl, when other girls were getting together and playing with their Barbies and stuff, my friends came over and we literally created a library in my basement with books we wrote. So we had the card catalog, we had the little due date stamp and the ink and all that kind of stuff. I would charge late fees to my parents for not returning their books on time, the whole 9 yards. So that was definitely like a full circle kind of thing. And I can see where also like the hypnotherapy and the EFT were too, because I always loved like writing music also. I love to sing. I was in a band, all that kind of stuff. And now when I get to coach people and work with them in that way, I get to like write EFT rounds and hypnosis sessions that speak to them the same way like a song lyric would. And getting to write my book was it was so much fun. And also it was a lesson in my own relationship with urgency and panic and working really hard. Because I started to write the book several times on my own and, with a schedule and with these certain deadlines, and this is how it was going to go. And every time it just like blew up in my face. And it got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to put this on hold. And I spent the whole next year just, doing podcast interviews like this one, doing public speaking engagements, and really getting clear on a lot of things that I didn't have the clarity around. And then when I decided, maybe I'm ready to do this book again, I made a deal with myself that it was going to be written through the lens of pleasure and ease and not through urgency and like proving myself. And actually like made sure that like I was enrolled in things that made sure that I was tapping into like pleasure and that I had the help and the assistance so that I could really focus on the parts that I had to be part of and let other people deal with like editing and all the stuff that's
Yeah, you figured out you have to delegate something because you're highly creative. You know exactly what you want to say. It's like you said, we need help. ADHD, high achieving entrepreneurs, we need help getting to the finish line, right? So delegating, and you probably got it done, I would assume, faster with more quality once you realized all that than if you'd have pushed yourself to the deadlines before that,
Yeah,
right?
when I re-engaged and I decided to pick it back up again, and I really hadn't written much of anything before that. It wasn't like I had like a book that was 3/4 finished sitting there that I was like, forget it. I hadn't really even started. And when I decided, okay, I'm going to do this, bring on the pleasure and ease, it was like 6 months from the start of writing to it becoming an international bestseller.
Amazing.
Grateful to have like deadlines from my publisher. That was helpful because I was kind of like, okay, I know I need to get like the first draft done by this date. And even though there was like some wiggle room, it wasn't like super tight. I also knew that I really wanted to I love repeating numbers and I wanted to release it on 11/11. So in order to do that, I knew that I had to be ready for that. And yeah, so I can do pretty well when I can reverse engineer something from a place,
From a
and
goal, from an endpoint.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's
Oh,
okay.
I
So
like that.
I have to, be able to do it by then and yeah, back
Yeah.
everything
And
from
your
there.
book we haven't really said this, but your book is focused on high achievers, right? I mean,
Yeah.
who is this book for?
Becoming More Me, Tapping into Success, Subconscious Secrets of an ADHD Entrepreneurial Mom. So for other ADHD entrepreneurial moms out there, the mom part isn't, always necessary for people. And neither is the ADHD part, but there's a lot of relatability in there that's baked in from my stories of, my childhood and my upbringing and different ways that affected my money beliefs, my emotional foundation, my own chakras, and the different kind of traumas that were baked in, and then how those actually present themselves as I got into my 20s and different. Like I had a couple of car accidents, and I got into my first marriage then, and had my first son, and so many good things, and also so many things that were made because choices that were made because I felt depleted in different things that I was going through that I was able to see pretty well in retrospect and that I know a lot of people can really relate to. There's my own stories in there. There's, client stories in there. There's EFT tapping, and there's a lot of really cool bonus resources that go along with the book, like EFT videos and hypnosis audios and things like that. So I really made it an actionable resource. And this was important to me because I know that ADHD entrepreneurs go down the rabbit hole of learning all the time. And you don't need my story, right? But you do need ways to break through your own resistance and avoidance and beliefs and that kind of stuff. So I made sure all of that was baked in, but it's framed around these different stories and things that make it all make sense.
Perfect. And your podcast has the same name, the Becoming More Me podcast, right? And it's the same thing. You do interviews and you talk about probably your experiences, and that is focused on ADHD entrepreneurs too, correct?
Exactly.
And achieving more without having to work more and all of the things, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Guys, you got a lot of resources to head into for Theresa. And if they do go to your website, you do have that 7-minute technique people can sign up for too, right? If they just want to jump in and start something. Do you have anything on the horizon? Is there anything new cooking, Theresa?
Always new things cooking.
That was a dumb question. You have ADHD. Of course there's something cooking.
Oh yeah, for sure. We'll see what happens, right? But right now the back burner has an EFT for ADHD entrepreneurs program brewing. So hoping that will be coming out in the next few months. If all things go smoothly. And then I'm just always kind of like working on the different, other offerings that I have to support people, whether that's in one-on-one or small group or, through programs that they can buy and do on their own time. I think it's important to have options. And, then it's all the things happening in my personal life.
Things with your pleasure and fun. Like, what are you doing for fun out there?
Yeah. I love, going out for evenings with friends. And, we were just my husband and I went out to dinner with some good friends of ours. Thursday is the 20-year anniversary of when we met. So we've got, fun plans to go out and celebrate then. Love seeing, live music. I love relaxing in a good bubble bath in my bathroom in this house is like a sanctuary. I absolutely love it. So anytime I can hop in a bubble bath or whatever, that just kind of reminds me that ease and pleasure are right here anytime I want them. And and slowing down with my kids. They're all growing up way too fast, and just having
Yeah.
to chill out with them during the summer and to help family. My mother-in-law just passed away 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And so I've been spending a lot of time with my father-in-law, helping him move and, finding ways to make things that could be really emotionally stressful lighter and enjoy the process of transition.
Yeah. So as an ADHD, and everyone listening gets this, you always have a lot of plates spinning. It's just a matter of regulation. And it sounds like prioritizing, regulating the nervous system, prioritizing what really needs to be consuming your energy right now, because we only have so much energy, guys.
I would say capacity is even more important than regulation, but it takes, regulation to develop greater capacity, because that's how much you can, like, sensation and emotion and responsibility and uncertainty and all that kind of stuff that you can handle, right? Without tipping into overwhelm and shut down or being like reactive. So that's where I try to focus and notice from day to day, like, where is my capacity?
Yes. Because you find that once you figure out where your capacity is, I know for me with ADHD and all the things moving, I also require a big shutdown times. I require some serious alone time in between all the action. Otherwise, I will not survive, right? Because I know what my capacity is. And so when we get these big bursts of energy out to the world, right? Because we've got all this creativity and all this energy to give, we give it out. But if we don't take that time to fill back up, right? For me, it's alone time. It's, not needing anyone around for a while to recharge, to heal, to regroup. Then we can do the burst of energy again later, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like regulation is our ability to be able to return. And then capacity is how much you can hold before you need to return, and that kind of a thing. So they definitely like go hand in hand, and capacity can be challenged by a lot of things. So too many decisions, too many competing priorities, sensory overload. I know sometimes it can get very noisy around our dinner table, four boys, my husband and I. And it's like a fun kind of noise, but that sometimes to me, I need an earplug or something to just kind of like.
You're in a house with 5 boys.
Yes. And a male dog.
You got to get a little girl kitten or dog or something. You need some kind of female energy up in there.
Yep. I get to be the queen in this situation, so that's not so bad either. But yeah, it is. It's a lot of male energy, but it's nice to be able to help shape that too.
It is, because honestly, they need you big time. Without that female energy circulating through that house, those boys are in trouble. Yeah, you definitely are regulating that whole household. That's what I'm feeling. Anyway, so.
Me too. Like you had said before about, we have to regulate ourselves, but co-regulation is probably for me, like one of the most important things. We were talking about simple things that people can do. One of my favorite rituals that my husband and I have is that, whether we wake up on our own or the alarm wakes us up and we're in like a snooze or whatever, he usually rolls over and he puts a hand on my heart and we just breathe together before we get up in the morning. And like that co-regulation sets up the entire day and the mood and the connection and all of that. And sometimes that's exactly what I need. Like if I get spun out or I'm feeling anxious or out of sorts, like I need that like human touch and that connection to co-regulate with. And I think that's important to mention too.
That sounds perfect. Does he have a bit of an ADHD tendency too, or no?
No, he's the only one in the household.
But he's gotten used to it. I was going to say, so from his point of view, he's probably had to acclimate to all of the ADHD energy in the household.
We've got ADHD.
And it's probably a grounding force for you all too.
All different stuff happening in the household. So yeah, there's a lot to learn and adjust to.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's all working out perfectly right now. Good. Okay. Well, do you have any final words for all of my midlife, high achieving, entrepreneur, possibly ADHD friends that are listening right now?
I would say, I think the biggest thing that I want women to understand is that we can feel like we're like really too much when we're going through all of this, and that you're living from patterns and beliefs and survival strategies that definitely made sense at some point in your life, but that no longer belong in the life that you're trying to create now. And midlife really gives us a powerful opportunity to stop performing and pushing and proving and to start asking what actually feels true for me now. And I think that's kind of the question or the thought that I would want to leave everyone with, because we don't have to keep using anxiety as like fuel or dopamine as fuel. or wait until you're completely healed or perfectly confident and finally ready in order to do something. You don't need somebody else to like help you create a different life. You can come back to yourself and regulate, and you can reconsider the beliefs that you've inherited and rewrite the trajectory of your present and your future.
Yes, agreed. And if you're hearing this right now and this is connecting with you, and I know for most of you it is, if it's connecting with you, now is the time. Guys, don't, like she said, don't wait for, I've got to be this much healed. I've got to feel this much settled, grounded, perfected. No, you do not. Now is the time. You can start working on this right now. So all the things are in the show notes. So you guys can head down there and see if this is connecting with you and you really are. I don't care if you're diagnosed with ADHD or not. It is just a label. If you're struggling with any of these things we're talking about, this is going to be helpful for you, right? Don't worry about the label. You don't need a diagnosis to dive into this work, you guys.
It's impossible not to be busy-minded in this day and age.
I mean, I think we're raised like that now, especially as women, multitasking, taking care of the whole world, right? This is all of us. Diagnosis or not, this is all of us. Everything's in the show notes. If you want to dig deeper into this, I said at the top of the show, I'm in the midst of this with you guys right now. You are not alone. And it's not just you and I listening. There's a lot of us. There's a lot of us going through this in midlife. And like I've said before, we can do it alone, but why? Why not get some help, guys? We don't have to struggle. No, let's not struggle. Let's support each other and get this done. Okay. Thank you, Theresa, so much. This has been very enlightening. I've gotten some really good tips myself to take away today. And I know our listeners have too.
Thanks for having me, Jen.
Perfect. Thank you. Listen, I know your time is valuable. And right now I'm feeling super grateful and totally humbled that you chose to hang out with me today. If this podcast resonates with you, could you do me a solid and hit that subscribe or follow button? That's going to help you out because you're never going to miss an episode. And it helps me out because you're never going to miss an episode. And if you have like 30 seconds more, could you leave a 5-star rating and maybe leave a kick-ass review? Thank you so much, and I can't wait to continue our journey on the next episode. Oh, and I can't forget the fine print. You know, the legal jargon. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We're just two friends on this journey together, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or any other qualified professional. You get it. See you next time.